to illustrate it. He borrowed the data from Honig's study and turned it into a graph. The graph was just a visual aid, it had no units, and its curves were impressionistic. But the result was that, perhaps to dramatize the point, or perhaps inadvertently, Boring made small differences in perception appear huge. The wayward chart became the basis for a famous diagram of the tongue, divided into zones for each taste. The tip is labeled sweet and the back bitter. Along each side, salty is close to the front and sour is behind it. The center is blank. Linda Bartoshuk, a professor of psychology who has studied this map's origins, believes it came about through a game of telephone. First, Boring exaggerated Honig's findings. Then researchers and textbook editors misinterpreted Boring's graph, using the peaks of its curves to label specific areas on the tongue. A final round of confusion produced a diagram with taste boundaries clearer than those on a world map. The tongue map offered a simple explanation for how the tongue processed tastes, a phenomenon everyone knew intimately. Teachers embraced it. Generations of elementary school students sipped and swished water spiked with either sugar, salt, lemon juice, or tonic water in a classroom experiment designed to dramatize the tongue map. Like air raid drills or dodgeball, the tongue map became a feature of post-war American schooling and lodged itself in the popular imagination. However, these demonstrations no doubt confused more children than they enlightened, as many found they couldn't detect the supposedly dramatic taste gradients. Even as the tongue map took on the mantle of conventional wisdom, research revealed that it wasn't merely an exaggeration or misinterpretation, but totally wrong. In 1973, Virginia Collings of the University of Pittsburgh repeated Honig's original tests. Like him, she found very limited variation in the tongue's taste geography. In the 2000s, more advanced tests showed that all 5 tastes — umami, or savoriness, was recognized as a 5th in 2001 — can be detected all over the tongue. Every taste bud is studded with 5 different receptor proteins, each tailored to detect molecules of one of the basic tastes. Had Boring done some taste testing himself, instead of interpreting Honig's 40-year-old data, he might have noticed the problem with his graph. Instead, he launched one of the more widely disseminated bits of scientific misinformation in history. The old diagram has lost much of its cachet in recent years, but it still lingers in some areas of the culinary world, including coffee and wine tasting, which value tradition and continuity as much as science. Klaus Riedel, the Austrian glassware designer, used it to create wine glasses whose unique curvature is intended to deliver each sip to the right place on the tongue, to release the full flavor. Riedel died in 2004. Since then, his son and successor, Georg Riedel, has acknowledged that science undermines the tongue map, but maintains the glass design's work. Boring died in 1968, before the map had been discredited. That he made a fundamental error about the nature of one of the senses, which he considered the building blocks for understanding both the mind and the universe, is an irony that he would doubtless have found mortifying. It was no mere miscalculation, but a basic error about a universal human experience. Everyone knows the gratifying of sweetness, and the stark taste difference between a pinch of salt and a fistful. Cheesecake makes the brain explode with pleasure. The complex tastes in coffee are a global obsession. Recipes distill entire cultures down to a single sensation. Flavor is one of a very few things that make day-to-day existence not just survivable, but consistently enjoyable. Why did this happen? Mere carelessness doesn't seem like an adequate explanation of Edwin Boring's disregard for his positivist philosophy, the foundation of his life's work. Nor does the fun of the tongue map experiment completely account for its persistence, given that it never really worked. Boring's mistake may be flavor's version of the Freudian slip, an apparently superficial error.